and Deal is a card game for 2 to 4 players that plays in around 45 minutes. Players trade and display cheeses to complete their cheese boards, and the winner is the player who serves up the most impressive cheese boards for their guests. My name's Tom Cox, one of the game designers. Let me show you how to play. To set up a game of Wheel and Deal, you'll need to do a few things. Place the board in the center of the play area. You'll need to randomize your scoring bonus tokens, and you're going to choose one of these variety tokens at random and put it on the board. This indicates for this game that soft cheese is going to be in demand. Also, select 3 of the country bonus tokens at random, put them on the board. They'll indicate country cheeses from different countries that will be worth bonus points at the end of the game. Next up, shuffle the main deck of cards and deal 4 to each player for their starting hand. Each player will also receive 3 personal taste cards. So shuffle the deck, draw 3. Each player may then choose 2 to keep and put 1 back on the. After everyone's chosen, those can go back in the box. They won't be needed for the rest of the game. And lastly, place the round marker on the board in the first round space. For a 3 or 4 player game, you'll play 6 rounds, and 2 player game, you'll see that you play 8 rounds. To help you visualize what you're trying to do in Wheel and Deal, here's what an endgame state might look like. Your play area might look like this as you've collected and displayed cheeses throughout the course of the game, and this will help explain how scoring works. There's 4 ways to score points in Wheel and Deal, and the person with the most points is going to win the game. You're going to score points if at the end of the game you have a look at all the players' cheese boards and you'll identify which player has displayed, in this case, the most soft cheeses, and they will claim a scoring bonus token worth 10 points. So in this example, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 soft cheeses, and the other player only has 1, so I would claim this scoring token, which is worth 10 points. These are public goals that anyone can achieve, and you need to have the outright most of that type of cheese in order to claim the token. You would then go ahead and resolve for all the other tokens available to see who claims them. So that's one way of scoring points. Another way of scoring points is going to be through your matchings. So you'll score points based on arranging your cheeses where you have 3, 4, or 5 or more cheeses of the same type in a row in your cheese boards. So if we look here, we can see that we've got a German cheese, a German cheese, and a German cheese. That would be considered a matching of 3 German cheeses. That would be worth 5 points. Importantly, cheeses can count towards 2 matchings, so a country matching or a variety matching. So you can see here this Hase is a German soft cheese. This also counts towards a matching of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 soft cheeses, which is worth 12 points. So this is one of the main ways that you're going to score points throughout the game, is by arranging your cheeses cleverly on your cheese boards to maximize your matching points. You'll notice that some cheeses have stars on them, which indicates that they're award-winning cheeses. Award-winning cheeses might have 1, 2, or 3 stars on them, and at the end of the game you're going to score 1 point for every star on cheeses in your cheese boards. So we would score here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 points just from award-winning cheeses. And lastly, the 4th and final way of scoring is based on how you have done with the goal cards that you drew at the start of the game. So you would check to see if you met the criteria, which in this case I haven't displayed any Italian cheeses, so I would score 0 points for that. And this one, I need to have a Swiss cheese next to a blue cheese. I have a couple of Swiss cheeses, not next to any blue cheeses, so I would score 0 points for those. They're going to influence your strategy throughout the game, and that's what you're working towards in Wheel and Deal. Now that we know what we're working towards, let's cover off a couple of the details around the components, specifically the cheese cards and what you need to know about those. So there's 3 varieties of cheese, and they're identified by both the icon in the top left, which you can see that's a soft cheese, we've got a blue cheese and a hard cheese, and you'll notice that the card background colors are also specific for those varieties. So hard cheeses are yellow, blue cheeses are blue, and soft cheeses are white. The other property that a cheese will have will be from a European country. There are 6 countries in the game, and they'll be identified by the banner behind the variety icon and the colors on the border and around the name of the cheese. So this is an Italian cheese. This is also an Italian, so this is a blue cheese, and you'll see that this is a different color border. This is a Spanish cheese. So that's how you identify those. Other piece of information you might find is whether or not they have any awards. So you can see the Spanish soft cheese here is a single award-winning cheese, whereas this one here has won 3 awards. So that's worth 3 points on its own if it's put on your cheese boards. A quick overview of the personal taste cards. There are 18 of them in the deck, and they're classified as either easy to achieve, medium difficulty, or some of them will be hard to accomplish. And those are written on the top right hand corner of the cards. Each personal taste card will have a card name on it up here. Also indicate how many points that goal is worth if you manage to complete it. I'll have some iconography here to remind you what the criteria are, which will also be explained in the text below. So this specific example is serve a UK cheese next to a hard cheese in any order. So you can put the hard cheese above the UK cheese, is what that means. We've got here a little repeat icon. Some of the goals will have this, which means that you'll be able to repeat this goal over and over, and you'll score 4 points for each unique time that you complete that goal. Whereas this one you'll see, this is a one-off. You score 4 points for each of your cheese boards that has a Spanish cheese on it. So you have 2 cheese boards, that's a maximum of 8 points, whereas this one has no maximum. You could potentially get a lot more points from this one. The other icons that you need to be aware of, this icon here will indicate that there's some criteria around the cheeses involved need to be displayed consecutively, so next to each other. Whereas this icon means there's no restriction around where on your cheese boards those cheeses are displayed. Now that we're familiar with the components and what the end game board state looks like, let's talk a bit about how the game plays. So it's played over a series of rounds, which will be 6 rounds for 3 to 4 players, or 8 rounds for a 2-player game, which is indicated on the board. And at the end of the last round, each player will get to take a finishing touch action. So have a look at that in the rulebook, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So each round is made up of each player taking a turn as the active player for the round. Once everyone's had a turn, and it's back to the first player, the round marker will advance. Player's turn revolves around the cheese line, which is these 3 spaces in the middle of the board. As you'll see from the board, the first step on a player's turn is to reveal a cheese from the top of the deck and add it to the first space in line. You then have the choice to either continue your turn or trade, which is outlined on the board below the slot. Now, trading is the core of the game. Players can openly negotiate and trade with other players, and any deal is valid as long as both players agree to it. The active player trades away the cheeses that are face up on the board in exchange for cheeses from another player's hand. Importantly, all cheeses involved in a trade can either be displayed on your cheese boards immediately or taken into your hand for later. This allows you to display when it's not your turn. If no trade can be agreed with other players, you can instead choose to donate them. For this, you give the cheese cards in line away to another player that has the least number of cards remaining in the hand, and if there's a tie, it goes clockwise from the active player. The reason you might do this is because one of the benefits of taking a trade action, it allows you to draw 2 cards, which gets you more cards into your hand. Now, taking a trade action will end your turn. Otherwise, you can choose to continue your turn. And if you choose to continue, you have these options up here. You can either add a cheese from the top of the deck to this spot, or a cheese from your hand. In this case, we'll do it from the top of the deck. You then have the same 2 options. You can continue your turn, or you can trade. Now that there's 2 cheeses in the line, trading might become more appealing for other players, or conversely, it might have become less appealing. But now you've got 2 cards in line, you might negotiate for a better trade in your favor. If you choose to trade, again, any cards involved in a trade may be displayed immediately, and then you'll draw 2 cards and end your turn. Otherwise, you'll continue your turn, and to do so, you can add a 3rd card to the line, but this time it must be from your hand. So in this example, I would add this card, and then I would have to take all 3 cheeses and display them on my cheese boards. I can do this in any order, so keeping in mind that I'm trying to get matchings of the same variety of cheese, I'll go soft and soft next to each other, and I put the blue cheese on my other cheese board. My turn is then ended, and turn is the next player's turn clockwise. Once everyone's taken a turn, the round tracker advances. At the end of the last round, your board state might look like this. As now everyone has taken a turn in the last round, the last thing that remains is what's called the finishing touch action. And a finishing touch triggers at the end of the game. Any player that has cards remaining in their hand may choose all the cards that of the same type, so that either share a variety or are from the same country, and add them to one of their cheese boards. This is where managing your hand becomes really important. So in this example, because I managed to collect 5 hard cheeses throughout the game that I didn't display yet, I can add all 5 hard cheeses to my cheese board and score. That will score 12 points as part of a 5-card matching. After the finishing touches have been applied is when you would check for the bonus tokens to see if you have the outright most, and then you'd move on to endgame scoring. Now we're on to scoring, and there's a few things that we first need to check for the score bonus tokens. So first off, we check who, if any, has the most soft cheeses on their cheese boards, and in this case I have 6 and the other player has 7, so they would claim the scoring bonus token for the soft cheeses. Then we would look at the Italian cheeses. I only have 1 Italian cheese and the other player has at least 1, so they have more than I do, so they will get that. Then we look at the British cheeses. We've got 3 over here, they only have 1, so I'll claim that token. And then the Swiss cheeses, they have 3, but I only have 1. So they'll actually claim 3 of the 4 scoring bonus tokens. The next thing we look at is our matchings. We're going to score either 5, 8, or 12 points if we have a matching of 3, 4, or 5. So if we look here at my matchings, I have 3 hard cheeses in a row, and then 3 French cheeses. So I have 2 matchings there of 5 points each. So that'll be 10 points in matchings for that cheese board. And then over here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 soft cheeses in a row, which is worth 12 points, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hard cheeses, another 12 points on my second cheese board. Then we'll count up the amount of awards our cheeses have accumulated, and we count the number of stars, scoring 1 point per star. So this one has 2, so we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 points in awards. And the last thing we do is add up the points from our personal taste cards that we collected at the start of the game. Remember that this one can be repeated, so if I've achieved it more than once, I'll get to score 4 points for each time that I've achieved it. Unfortunately, I've only achieved it once, which is the blue cheese here next to this Swiss cheese. And I only had one Swiss cheese, so I score 4 points for this. And then in this one, I multiply the number of Italian cheeses I have by the number of varieties. So I only have one Italian cheese, one variety, so I only score 1 point. So a total of 5 points there for those. Add up the points for each player and then find out who wins.